So this is like really freeform. I've made 3 movies, 3 feature films. I've made a lot of short films. I've made and sold 2 of those, were sold, distributed. One of them distributed internationally on, DVD, Blu-ray, and all the streaming platforms. The other one was a little indie drama, and it was distributed only on streaming, because we knew when we made it, we knew exactly what we were making. It's a little indie drama. We had interest from a lot of people, but it came down to well, you don't have a big actor in it, so we can't sell it. So this whole morning is just going to be about how you can make movies for less, I guess. On the technical side of things, I know nothing. I hear people talk about cameras and stuff, but I don't do any of that. I do budgeting and scheduling. It's all business for me. The big thing, I guess, I can impart is, and I want you guys, if you have questions, jump out, because I want this just to be a conversation. I guess I'll tell you a little about my movies, and then we can move forward from there. So my first feature, I've done a ton of shorts, but my first feature that I produced was an action film. I don't advise that. Don't do it. It's a terrible idea. It sounds really cool, but then, it's time to film a car chase scene, and there's a lot of safety stuff involved, and you don't have the money for that, so you have to go figure it out. And there's lots of, we had lots of shooting, we had explosions. We did have a pyrotechnic guy that did us a favor. But it was an ultra low budget film, which means everything I've done is ultra low budget, under $250,000. And so it was difficult to do car chases and stunts and fights. Basically all the stunts are me, because I have done martial arts my whole life and done stunt driving. So all the stunts were just me in different outfits doing stuff. There's Ryan in a jumper getting blown up. There's Ryan driving the truck while it gets blown up. So every cut of something happening is all me. But that's one of the big things with indie film. You're just gonna have to you're gonna wear all the hats. So the second film, we were same director, different producing team, other than myself, and we said let's not do that again. Let's not make an action film. Let's not go crazy. It was just, lived on coffee and no sleep. I actually brewed coffee with Red Bull on the first film to see if that would help. It was the worst thing I've ever tasted. It was just absolutely awful, so not advisable. But it was, it was just brutal. It was every learning experience you can ever have. We were just there doing it. It was very Wild West. It was we're just gonna do it. And then you realize how much work has to be done, and you fall asleep on lunch, and someone comes and wakes you up and is it's time to film again. Basically, after that, we said we're not going to do that again. We did a drama, and the first film was not well planned. It was very Wild West. We were just we're going to do that, and we did, and it was just painful. And second one, we planned obsessively, and it went really smooth, and it was good. It was 2 people. It was a farmhouse or ranch house, and we had some ranchers that had a house that they just grazed cattle on the land, but they didn't use the house. So we said, can we go move into the house for a few months and turn it into a set? And so we had our production designer go in, and again, low budget, so he was getting furniture from the secondhand store or from people who had an extra couch in the basement or extra picture frames or whatever, and then he had an aesthetic he looked for, but he basically took an empty house that was just full of dust and flies and 2 old refrigerators that didn't work, and turned it into a home that these people lived in. And the family was really gracious and just let us kind of be out there and take over the house, and then eventually actually let us keep it that way for 8 months so we could do reshoots, which was absolutely awesome of them. But anyway, so that one was really small scale. We were not going to try to make explosions. We're not trying to make a new, Mad Max, which is kind of what the first one was. Bless you. So after that, we just said, okay, let's do something different. Went with a small indie drama, and it was a blast. The third one I just finished was another don't make an action film type of thing. They'll make a horror western with no money. It's a period piece. There's we got lucky. We had friends that had costumes. We had friends who had horses, and these guys were like pros. You know, the one guy has, I mean, all the costumes you could imagine. The other guy, he's done horse wrangling for John Ford movies. He knows his stuff, and he has good horses. But, you know, it's a difficult balance when you're thinking about a project. Like this last project started out as, let's make a cheap movie that'll just be a fun horror movie. And then 7 drafts later, we had raised, you know, around $250,000, and we had turned it into a Western that was like a women's empowerment piece that follows this Native American woman like kind of overcoming all the odds. And it's really cool, but it started out as like, can we make a movie for $5,000? Yes, we can. It's just basically gonna be all Little Caesars pizza. That's it. We're gonna pay $5,000 in Little Caesars and make a movie, and everybody will just crash on cots in our houses. That's what the movie started as, and then it turned into something like we had 40 crew members. We had people from Louisiana and LA and here, and I ended up staying at a house near here, like I never went home. Anyway, so again, like ambition kind of grew and it grew and it grew, and there was all these phases where we had an investor with access to a fund, and he was like, if we can get a big actor, we can get, you know, $1 million or $2 million for this movie. And so for a long time we spun our wheels negotiating with like Nick Cage or Elijah Wood or whatever, whoever it was. Like we had several actors like that where we were kind of throwing it back and forth. And then at the end, if we didn't get a commitment, it was like, now we need to make the movie for no money, or we have to, like for the money we have access to, or we have to put it on hold. And we just decided, like, there's no guarantee we'll get the $1 million in the Nick Cage or the Elijah Wood, but we have access to this money here. We have an investor that's really involved in the project and really loves it. Let's do this and let's make it for as little as we can. So that's a really long way of telling you guys what I've done, but all of it hinges on one thing, and that's favors, like from everybody. Everybody, like several of the people here have done favors for this film. Irene came out for, what was it, 3 days or 4 days you were out? Yeah, and I mean, these are 12-hour, 14-hour days of just a lot of the time standing around and waiting while we do stuff, and then doing your scene, or that, you know, you sit around and it's like, okay, we're almost ready for you. So, you know, that's the reality of low-budget film. But the biggest thing is, if you guys want to make a low-budget film, it's all going to depend on favors and relationships. You're going to have to call friends and be like, I know you wouldn't do this for anybody else, but will you do it for me? And that's our entire crew on this last one was made up of people. I shouldn't say that. 80% of the crew was made up of people that said, I'm doing this for one of you, like the producer or the director, like, or the two of us combined. Like they just said, like, I won't do this for anybody else. I have one friend, she made $46 to do our movie for a month and a half of work. So that kills, you know, like she went home and couldn't pay her bills basically, but she was like, I knew I was getting into this, but at the end of it, she basically just got fed and stayed in a hotel for the entire movie. So.
Yeah, Ryan, where does all this logic about low budget start? I mean, does it start with the script? And I mean, to keep control of it?
Yeah, it does.
Run away from you?
It really does. Like, so I think the cautionary tale is that 2 of the movies I've made, one of them started too big, and then one of them started small and it grew. And part of that was naivete, but yes, so it starts with the script, like, right, so I would suggest if you have an idea, outline what you want if you had $100 million. And then scale it back to what's realistic if you're going to try to make it yourself. So if you're not, whether this is a short or a feature, like it's an idea that you have, like this nugget of an idea, take that and foster it, but then realize, like, even in Hollywood, even with the studios, I've got friends now that are trying to sell scripts, and I'll write them a budget and it's a $5 or $7 million movie because they're like, oh, we're gonna have all this action and all these stunts, and it's basically gonna be 4 weeks of car chases. And when you write that budget out, it's like, okay, well, you can't sell that now. Every studio, every person that he's talked to, my one friend who has he has like 2 action movies, he said, hey, I can't like get that much money for that. So.
Do you cut your teeth on shorts?
I did, yeah. I mean, I think you should cut your teeth on shorts because You know, being on a feature is really the deep end. It's sink or swim, and you're gonna sink. Like this last one, we made tons of mistakes. Some of it just new territory. The biggest one being that we filmed on Forest Service property. Don't suggest it. Don't do it. Find private property. I'm just gonna tell you right now. Like, just don't do it. We had private property for most of it, but we had one location that was Forest Service. It rained for 4 days before that, and we couldn't get down the road with our crew because everybody had a car, and we had an RV, like a pull behind trailer for makeup, and we had catering was a food truck. I hired a food truck for the entire month. Nobody could get down the road because it was washed out. And so we had to change locations on the day. We ended up moving to still on Forest Service, just basically across the road, and that caused a whole huge debacle. And that was our mistake. I didn't understand. I was just like, well, I got a permit to film, and I'm allowed to film right there. I'm gonna go film over there. And it was, 1,000 yards down the road, basically. But they came in and they shut us down. Like Forest Service Rangers came in, shut us down. Yeah, well, and there were other stipulations. Like apparently, I told them we were gonna have horses, which you can have, but they said you're not allowed to have horses. We weren't allowed to park a car overnight. I didn't know that. You're not allowed to, if a horse eats any grass on Forest Service land, it's a $5,000 fine for every blade of grass every time that a horse eats something, it's $5,000. So it was, it became this big like debacle because it was like, we didn't know any of this and we told our guy exactly what we were gonna do. So there's a lot of back and forth. So first of all, don't film on Forest Service. But the moral of that is like, you're gonna make mistakes. Like, I don't know, I think total of the shorts, like I've probably done 15 or 20 films. And I still am making massive mistakes. Like Forest Service shut our production down. We had to tell 40 people, like they told us we could stay, but that if we stayed, we would continue to rack up fines and they would hit us with like the full extent of everything. And we were like, we don't want to do anything bad. Like we don't want to be hurting the land. We don't want to get in trouble. So we just said like, we shut the production down and we told everybody, we had to tell 40 crew members, sit around in your hotel room tomorrow because we don't know where we're going to film. And then the 3 of us on the production team, and 4 of us, there's a silent producer, basically drove around knocking on doors, being like, hey, can we bring a crew in here and film for like starting tomorrow? We need to start tomorrow and we need to film for a week. And eventually we found a place and a guy said, yeah, I'll let you be on my land. And he happened to run an Airbnb and we found it somehow. So I think the director found it. He drove down a road and was like, this works. And he started knocking on doors and found the place, and we were able to pick up production the next day and save grace, and then work with the Forest Service to make amends for all the mistakes we'd made. But those are the sorts of things like there are things you don't know, and it's going to come up. So I mean, I definitely think starting with shorts is the smart way to cut your teeth. So I'm obsessive about safety. This is like, if you walk away with one thing, safety. Like from this, like I can tell you all the ways to cut money. You can cut corners everywhere, but I have seen too many people get hurt or actually die on set because someone didn't think about safety first. They thought, oh, it's okay, he's a pro. Oh, it's okay, he's done this before. Oh, it's fine, it's just ... So as far as horses, the wrangler we had has done professional wrangling on multiple huge budget movies. He is a friend, but we brought in someone, he knew what he was doing, and he knows how to handle people who weren't pro riders. The other thing is always never pushing a person past their comfort zone, and never make someone do something. Like my philosophy is, if I won't do it, that they're like, yeah, I'm not gonna ask them to do it. And so like, some people are fine. Like some people, stuntmen, they're like, I'll jump off that. And it's like, okay, well, I won't. But to some degree, I think there's just a sense of there's a sense of common sense, double sense, there that you have to really focus on. But as far as safety restrictions, no, there aren't a lot of. I think there are some safety restrictions with SAG as it pertains to animals. But with ultra low budget filming, when you're in low budget, you're not working with any of the other unions. You can't afford any Yahtzee person or a Teamster. Like, it just doesn't make sense. SAG is the one necessary evil. You're gonna want an actor that has chops, and sometimes you're gonna have to get a SAG actor, and that's nothing against them. It's just the actor you might want might be represented by SAG, and they cannot work outside of SAG without risking their status in the union. So there are some rules with SAG as far as working with animals. There's not a lot of like, you must do this, you must do that, especially in ultra low budget. Like, the reality is ultra low budget is very Wild West.
At like what level do you do at LLC? Did you do that with all of your?
I do, yeah. With the shorts I haven't. I think we did on one, but that one.
You can get insurance too.
Yeah, so you can get insurance. On the one short we did, but that's because it was like it was with two really well-known actors. We had someone. We did the action movie, and while we were at a screening with the action movie here in South Dakota, someone approached us and said, "You did a good job. I'd like to be a part of your next one." And so we looked at it and said, "Could we make this like sort of weird, fun art piece that kind of will be a festival darling?" That was the goal. It was called Destroyer. Andrew Keitling directed it, and it's a weird, fun art piece. It starred Alan Ruck, who is, Cameron from Ferris Bueller's Day Off is how most people know Alan Ruck, and then Judith Hoag, who was the original April O'Neil in the Ninja Turtles, and she's on Nashville, or was on Nashville. So at the time, because we had those size actors coming out, you have to kind of keep yourself safe. It's generally a good idea. Just like, this is my whole disclaimer. This is not legal advice. I am not a lawyer or a doctor, but I think it's a good idea to get an LLC for everything you do, because if something happens, and somebody sues you, that can stay with you for the rest of your life. Whereas if you have insurance and an LLC, you're safe and they're protected. Everybody's in a good place.
So you set up one for each?
Yeah, I have an LLC for every film that is made. So it's a completely separate business, and that's just to mitigate the risk and the reward of that film. If you have one LLC that has 15 films, you're diversifying its portfolio, as it were, but you're also diversifying the risk, because maybe you make 14 great films, and on film 15 something happens, and maybe it's an HR thing, maybe it's an injury thing, but things happen, and suddenly they go for workers' comp, and they go against your insurance, and then they say, no, I want more. Well, some lawyer's gonna look at that and say, well, they hold 15 films in this single LLC. We can take them to the cleaners because he's got out of those 15, 3 of those sold and made a lot of money. They know that they're gonna own you. So it's really a legal safety issue, I guess. And it doesn't, you can form LLCs, everybody's from here. So LLCs in South Dakota are really easy to form. Again, I'm not a lawyer, not legal advice. I formed all mine myself, and it costs $150. And so I think I've got 5 or 6 now. It's a pain at tax season. I'm doing lots of taxes right now, and it's annoying. So there's that. There's that downside. But a separate LLC for every movie. If it's just a short with you two guys are like, hey, let's make a short. I don't know that an LLC is really a good idea, just having some contracts that are like, we're all gonna make this thing. There's definitely a difference between a few people getting together for a day and making a little film, and 30 days and horses and stunts or car chases or whatever. So, and guns, that's the other thing, we had guns. So, don't suggest guns. It's always cool, just don't do it. Skip the guns. Anyway, it's cool looking, but there's a lot of safety. I could talk, this entire seminar, we could just talk about safety. I'm so obsessive about it because I've just seen too many people get hurt from just silly stuff, or someone being like, no, it's fine, it's not that big of a deal. And then someone's bleeding or in the hospital, and it's things happen, mistakes are made. We were doing a car chase scene, and I had hired 2, we didn't have hardly any money. So when I say hired, I said, will you come out and do a movie and I will give you pizza? So let's be real, a lot of times that's what this is. We were in Pierre, South Dakota, and I was part of the racing community in Rapid City, street racing, like just doing stupid crap in the Black Hills with cars that are fast. And so I reached out to several of them and said, do you know anybody in Pierre who can handle a vehicle safely? Like racers, I need race car drivers. And they got me 2 race car drivers, and that agreed to come out on set. And these guys, basically their job was to race, like to keep us safe, because they have faster reactions than we do. They've been in those situations hundreds of times. We've all driven on the road, but they're doing it at 100 and some miles an hour. Their reactions are trained to go faster. So for one scene, one of the people refused to let one of the race car drivers stunt drive, said, no. One of the producers said, no, I'm going to do this. I'm good. And it was just purely, I think there was no fault of his, other than not letting a race car driver drive. There was something fell off of a vehicle ahead of, we had 2 vehicles chasing each other. And I'll take fault for this as well, but something fell off of one of the vehicles, and your instant reaction is something fell, hit the brakes. And he did. And where I take fault is I was not paying attention, close enough attention. We had our cameraman and the AC standing inside of basically a UPS type truck, a bread truck, that we had turned into a mobile prison for the film. So we had put bars up and stuff. But the cameraman had the camera on his shoulder, and then the AC was kind of like steadying him. And it just never occurred to me, they need to be strapped down. Like they need to be, so if something happens, they don't go anywhere. And something happened, and they went somewhere. So the cameraman it was 70 pounds of camera at the time. And so he flew forward and landed on, like right here, hit, in those box trucks, there's a metal thing that covers the engine, because the engine's inside the compartment. And he landed on the metal thing, and it just right on the soft part of his stomach, and ended up with internal bleeding for a few weeks. And then the AC hit the windshield, broke the windshield, and then when he tried to brace himself, there was something sharp that hit his hand, and so he ended up with a big gash. Luckily, we did have a medic on set that day, so instantly I got the DP out, laid him down, because he was like, doing the tough guy thing. I'm fine. So I laid him down and got the medic over, and he ended up with some internal injuries, not too bad, but internal injuries. The AC was able to get butterflied and continue. But yeah, so things happen. It's really, really easy. It's innocuous. It's when you're too busy and you're thinking about this and this and this, and you never think, oh, well, what if you slip just walking, on that ground? And we had some safety Nazis, is what they called themselves, on Blackwood. They were professional stuntmen for 30 years. And so that stuff didn't happen. They'd be like, wait, you're gonna walk? We're gonna walk with you. But yeah, we did have on Blackwood, we had a fog machine blow up. And so that was bad. So it was like a big special fog machine, and it started a giant fire that we weren't able to put it out until we had fire extinguishers, so someone ran and got a fire extinguisher, we controlled it and then put it out, and it was fine. But no, every set I've ever been on, something will go wrong. You've got 30 people working 14-hour days, sometimes more on some of those sets, if things go wrong. So yeah, this really could just be a safety seminar. That's what I'd ask you do first, is just be safe. But getting back to like the ultra low budget thing, like you can skimp on a lot. Don't skimp on insurance, because that's going to save you when something does go wrong. Like, get insurance. It sucks. We all hate it, but it'll save you when something goes wrong.
Are there commercial agencies that specialize?
Yeah, you can't get insured by your local agency for anything involving film. So I had my production company, I had it insured for a while, and when they found out I was doing a spot for House of Cards, and they were like, oh, you're filming? Well, you can have a film company, but you can't film. And then they cut my insurance off. Like, they sent me a letter that said you don't have insurance anymore. So you have to get it's called short-term production insurance. And
who brokers that?
There's a lot of agencies in LA. I don't know. I always just call, I have 2 agents in LA that I've worked with that are really good. Yeah, and that's all it is. It's a special insurance that covers the film industry and all the nuances of having car chases and stunts and guns, and they know how to deal with it, whereas a regular insurance company isn't prepared for that, and their business model isn't set up to pay out against that. So, or to collect against it if you were the one that tied the person to the train tracks and didn't tell the train that you were doing that. So that kind of stuff happens.
So how do you get actors and things if you don't go through SAG or
Yeah.
whatever? Do you just get friends? Do you call people to
Yeah.
get an audition?
No, that's a great question. So I've done everything, all of that. Usually it starts with like social media now. Like start with social media. Make it clear, like be real with people. If you're not paying them or you're just gonna buy them Subway, like just say, Subway and Oreos will be provided. And then they know what they're getting into, because it sucks so bad, especially as an actor who's really trying to make it and trying to like build a portfolio, and you think, I'm gonna get paid, and you show up and it's like, well, here's your pizza, see ya. But yeah, so put it on Facebook, put it on whatever social media you're active on. Email people that you know might know someone in the area or might be interested. And then we did do auditions for several of the films. We did, for locals, we put out on Facebook, we said we're gonna do auditions. For one of them, we did in-person auditions. That really sucked. Like, partially because you're asking people to come out and audition for something they're probably not gonna get paid for. And you have only one specific time you can do that. So we did it like 3 p.m. on a Saturday. We had a lot of people email and say, I couldn't make it. Well, sorry, we were doing in-person auditions. The director just wanted to do in-person auditions. The other ones we did, I always call them Skype auditions, but they're not. They're just, put your cell phone up. Here's the lines. We send you sides. Like we say, auditions will close this date. And we make a description of each character. So, this character is, this type of person. If you have a specific age that person needs to be in your mind, you can say like kind of this range. But I'll admit, like, that's pretty flexible if you get a great actor. We had one actor out of Minnesota try out, and a character that was originally a man, she tried out and we were like, oh yeah, this is gonna be a woman. It's done. Like, now it's a woman, and we, like the writer-director, he completely retooled the character and was like, this needs to be a woman because it makes the story so much more powerful for her to be a woman in the 1870s who's kind of lording over this tough outlaw guy. So, but what we do is we just ask for auditions online. We give them an email address, or like, I do websites by day. This is not my day job. If it was, I would just be in all the debt, because movies, they sell and they make a little bit of money, but I'm not rolling in the dough for it. So my day job is building websites. We built a little website. Then I had an uploader, and you just put your YouTube link or uploaded your video via the uploader, and then we can watch it on our, what's up?
Like, how do you deal with a bad actor?
I'm really bad about this, and this is part of why I really struggle with the whole Hollywood culture. I believe in I have this philosophy of radical honesty. If you ask me, I just tell you, and it sucks because it means that I'm telling you the truth, and I'm not going to spare your feelings, and that blows really bad. But so in that situation, it's like you can soften it. You can say, look, it's really not working. On the day when you're actually filming and it sucks, that's up to the director. You have to have a director. If you're a director, that's you guys' job. You need to do that. My job, I'm usually the assistant director and or producer. On the last one, I assist direct. I'm the asshole. My job's to be the asshole. I'm here to tell you don't have time for that. I'm here to deal with complaints and shut people down when they're being idiots and help them be idiots when they need to be, whatever. Let's get this done. I'm the slave driver. But the director's job is really to kind of handle that person and get to know who they are as a person. And some directors are hard asses, and they'll just be like, look, it's your job, get to it. But none of us are getting paid at this level. So then it's about trying to coax it out of them. And so the director's job, really, you gotta pull that person aside and say, look, could we try it like blank? And we had one short I was on years ago in Denver where an actor just wasn't getting it, and it was just bad. It was it's a short, it's a 5-minute film. You don't have that much time. Don't screw it up. But I don't even think it was the director. It was just one of the crew members pulled him aside and was like, instead of reading the lines, he was I don't remember what it's called, but it's very like telegraphed actor. Like he has a plan, he's going to knock on the door. And when he knocks on the door, he will say first line. And after he says first line, he'll make a face. And after he makes the face, he'll say second line. And after that, he'll enter and he'll like take his cup and then he picks up his thing. And everything was very telegraphed, but he wasn't getting an emotion out of the line. And the production designer is who it was, pulled him aside and says like, maybe try it like this. Just imagine. And so I don't actually remember what the scenario was, but the idea was he was supposed to answer the door and be surprised that this guy was there. Like, and it was just like, he couldn't do it. Like he was trying to create surprise. He wasn't being surprised. He was like, oh. And it was like, it was kind of like that. Like, it's like, okay, this is what surprise looks like. And so the production designer said, just imagine that you were at the strip club all night and you just told your wife that, yeah, right? Everybody who's married or been married knows what this is like. You're like, you just told your wife, no, sweetie, I had to work late, and you can't find your wallet. And then there's a knock at the door, and the bouncer from the strip club, or the stripper you were with, is standing at the door being like, you forgot this. Now play that. And the guy played it, nailed it, first time. It was done, yeah, because he was like, instead of being like, I'm supposed to be surprised, he's like, shit, the stripper's here. And he's like, now your wife's standing behind you, talking to you, who's at the door, sweetie? No one. What are you doing here? So it's like, totally changes the performance. So I mean, it's really up to the director to do that. As far as the producing side and like controlling things, I mean, work with what you got. If you have too low of a budget, that's something we've had to deal with where it's like, well, this is what we got and we can't afford to reshoot. Like we just can't afford to bring a crew out. And if you have to reshoot, I just think be honest, like just be straight and say, look, it just didn't work.
Right.
Like, and you can be honest, like it wasn't what I envisioned. And sometimes it comes down to cutting. Like we have a scene in the movie right now, they're editing right now and they're gonna have to cut out some scenes that just didn't work. And that's just plain and simple, like just didn't work. So, I don't know, but my policy is honesty. Like it's easier to spare their feelings, but I'm just like, you know what? Like you don't wanna be like, I mean, maybe you do. Like if you like being a dick, that's cool. But I don't wanna be like, you suck. No. And again, like, you're asking these people to do it for free. Generally, like most of my movies, people have worked for free. Like even when we have $100,000, that sounds like so much money. Like every time I think about it, I'm like, oh my God, I'm gonna make such a cool movie. And then you figure out how much it costs to feed a crew and put a crew in housing. And then it's like, okay, now what do we do with these other pennies? I don't know, figure it out. Like, you just don't, like there's not much money after, that's the biggest cost. So I'll get to because this is supposed to be about ultra low budget stuff, that's the biggest thing. Food, like feed everybody really well. I've seen too many sets where it's like, here's your granola bars, have a good day. And it sucks. Like if you're gonna ask them to do anything, just give them all the food they can eat and good food. Like don't give them just a sandwich and be like, congratulations. That was the biggest compliment we got on the last film. We hired a food truck. For those of you that are from Rapid City, so everybody, or from the area, the Good Stuffed cheeseburger truck, go there all the time. I love that place. But Jesse, who owns the Good Stuffed, I hired him, and he had a block in his schedule because we were heading into winter where he said he could do it. So he would show up an hour and a half before everybody came and leave an hour after everybody left. I mean, it was just, I don't know how I don't think, there were some days where he was like, I'm gonna sleep in the truck if I have to come out here again tomorrow. And we were like, no, we're moving locations, not, because he was driving, there was one point where he was driving to Edgemont from Rapid City every morning with a food truck to be there at 6 a.m. to feed us breakfast. And then he did dinner after shoot, so we would do dinner at 6:30 p.m. and then he'd have to drive back to Rapid City, and we were like, we could have got you a hotel, you should have told, because at one point he just came to me and he was just dead, and he's like, I've been sleeping when you guys film, I just take a nap. I was like, yeah, don't, just, communicate. But food is the biggest thing. Like, you're asking people to work for little to no money, feed them really well. I mean, if you're asking people to work for a lot of money, if you don't feed them well, yeah, they're gonna be pissed. Like, you can be on the biggest budget movie in the world.
Angry. Like,
Yeah, that's it. Yeah, everybody's going to be hangry, and it's like just feed everybody all the time. So that's the way to save money on that for us was on every film, Sam's Club for Crafty, like go get a bunch of snacks and fruit and just let everybody just tear it apart, and you'll learn what your crew likes. Like I always start with like granola bars and fruit and like maybe some nuts, and then you find out what your crew likes, and suddenly it just starts dissipating. Usually it's junk food. Usually it's like cookies and they're like little packs of Oreos, and it's most people, potato chips. Like most people are not super healthy, and especially on movies when they're working 14 hours a day, they're like, I don't care, I want salt and sugar right now. So yeah, that stuff, like you find out what they want and then just give them more of that. For us, the biggest thing that helped was finding people that really wanted to support the project but didn't have money. So that's so common. Like all your friends and family want to help you out. Like they want to see you succeed to some degree. They maybe don't have money, or they're like, well, you're making a $100,000 movie. I could maybe write you a $20 check, or I got this spare change, They can help you out by making food. Like you can go buy the ingredients and have them make food. So we did that on one film where we had groups of people. We had a calendar as a food calendar. They volunteered to cook food each night. Like we set them up on certain nights. So it's like, well, you're able to do Friday, Saturday, and Sunday each week of the film. So we had these two sisters who came in, and like 4 nights a week they would just make our film dinner. For lunch we had a restaurant that supported the film, but was like, it's a restaurateur. He's living paycheck to paycheck trying to run his business. I can't write you a check. I can't invest. Well, could you give us 30% off your food? Or could you give us cost or something like that, And so he ended up every day for lunch, he would give us severely discounted food as long as it was on a limited menu. So it was something like, there was like salad. You get chicken Caesar or Caesar salad for the vegetarians. Like a hot sandwich, like roast beef or something, and then like cheeseburger, and it was a diner type place. So he had like 3 or 4 things that we could pick from, and then we got it really discounted because he could just make it quick. So that kind of stuff is where you're gonna save money. That's where you're gonna get into like the real nitty gritty of ultra low budget filmmaking, is like finding a restaurateur or restaurateurs multiple that are willing to donate something, even if it's a pot of coffee, like, or like one of those, like we have out front, one of those big things. If you can get a restaurateur or a coffee shop to just give you 2 of those a few times in a shoot, man, that's going to change the amount of time you have to spend. You don't have to sit and make coffee, especially if it's just like you making a movie. Everything falls on your shoulders. It's going to take away the stress and the time and the money, and that stuff adds up really fast. So a lot of people will donate, if someone's like, I really want to help you, or, oh, I wish I could help. Yeah, you can. Like, grab me a pack of granola bars next time you're at the store. That's stuff, you get a big tub of food and give that to people and just let them graze, and they will be very happy. And then, so for us, we knew 80% of the people were there as a favor. It was just hey, you guys have done me solid in the past. I'll do you solid. So we had the food truck breakfast, lunch, and dinner. No one had to go get their own meal at all, and the food truck accommodated all dietary restrictions: gluten-free, vegetarian. Like we had a celiac on set, we had 3 vegetarians on set, and so we had to make sure that those people could eat and eat well. You can't always afford a food truck. In that case, find out what everybody needs. If you've got a celiac or you've got someone who's gluten-free, work it out. Like, you can always make, like, we had one guy on a short, my mom made lasagna, but he's lactose intolerant, very lactose intolerant. So she made him a little baby lasagna with no cheese. And so, you can do that. You can call your family, your friends, and say, can you make a meal, and here are the restrictions, and you can figure out a way. There's ways to do it. So food is the biggest, like, on an ultra low budget, especially if you're working with locals, feed them well, and then that's gonna be your big expense. Like, most of the time, especially with a short, you're not paying people, or you do, get them a $20 or a $20 Starbucks card or something. That goes a long way. Especially if they plan to come out for free, and you just reward them with like a thank you for being here, really appreciate, go get some Starbucks. So that's the bottom of the bottom, ultra low budget. People make it. What was it? Paranormal Activity was $18,000. not all in, let's be real. Like, the thing they don't tell you is that the studio completely remastered the sound and recolored it and pumped in like $300,000 or $400,000 into cleaning that movie, and then pumped in another couple $100,000 in marketing. But the provable concept that started the whole wave of like, whoa, have you heard about this movie? That was 18 grand. It was a bunch of like cheap cameras and a couple people in a house. You can do that. Like, you can make that movie. Don't make that movie. It's already been done. Do something different. Like, but you can make a movie like that. You can make a guy in a house, you know, cabin in the woods, guy in the woods, whatever, for really, really cheap. And then prove yourself and be able to go on. You know, it's doable. You can start with no money and prove yourself. And so if you're the writer, director, you're the creative. How many here are the creatives? Like, we got a creative. Yeah, you guys aren't creatives. That's good. That's good. I like that. I like to be part of the creative team, but just be like, what if it was blue? I helped, guys. Because I'm not the creative guy. Like, there's a reason I do budgets and schedules and all of that. So, minimal things. An LLC, form an LLC, fork over the $150. Get insurance. It's about $3,000. It's between $1,500 and $3,000. 2 people in a house, no stunts, no guns, no knives. You might be able to get away with it. You might be able to get insurance for like $2,000. Insurance is always going to be 30 days. So whether you film 9 or 30, it's going to be a 30-day policy minimum. Let's see. You're going to have to pay the actors generally. You might, if you have actors that you can work with, that's great. But you're also asking them to take off for a feature, take off a week and a half minimum of work, 2 weeks of work, unless they currently aren't working. Then you just hit the jackpot and make that movie. So yeah, you're going to pay the people something to compensate for them not working, taking away from their life, whatever. You might be able to get crew members that volunteer. If you do, like, I guess that's a multi-faceted thing, but you'll need a camera person, and you'll need sound, and you'll need at least one utility person. Like, this is the lowest of the low, what you can do with no money. You need one person that just does stuff. Like, you need somebody to slate. Because if the camera person, if Randall is back there setting up the shot, and then he has to come up front and be like, scene 1, take 2, marker. And then he has to go put that down, and then he has to go start, okay, all right, we're good. And then, oh, no, hold on, I got to erase that and change it. It's like, it's senseless. So you have to have you'd need at least one floater person. I would suggest 2 or 3, even if they're unskilled, even if they're like, I make my kids come, so I have 3 kids. I make my kids come on set, and then they just do stuff. Like, I hand them a pack of water, and I go, make sure everybody drinks. And they'll go, well, but they aren't looking at me. And I go, yeah, they aren't going to. Go stick it in their hand and walk away. You're invisible. Just do something. Like, you have to understand that there's a lot to be done on a film set. So, bare minimum, LLC, insurance, cameraman, sound, a floater person, actors. If you're the director and you're not the camera person, you might want to be there. There's a lot of contracts that you can fill out that doesn't cost money. You just get a location agreement. So make sure you have your paperwork for everybody that does anything. You know, get an agreement with your crew, every single crew member, even when they're working for free. Ours just say for a total compensation of $0. And then they sign a contract that says, I'm working for you, you have workers' comp. That way, if anything happens, our insurance covers them. I would get workers' comp after doing this last one. It was, I think, $800 for ours, and that included guns and horses for an entire film for 30 days. So you can get away with it far cheaper. But again, you're just protecting the people that you really do care about. Like, these people are doing a favor to help you create your vision. Something happens and they can't work. If you don't have workers' comp, that's a failure on your part, and legally, you're at fault. So that falls under the insurance category. You could make a film like that, I think. If you can get favors from everybody, you can make a film like that for $5,000 to $10,000. And I know that's like totally, first of all, that sounds like a lot of money, but you might be able to find someone that believes in you, or 100 someones that believe in you and are willing to give $100 or whatever. So if you have to pay everybody, 50 grand. I think you should have 50 grand, because you need to pay those people well, and should not do a 9-day movie. Like, you shouldn't do a feature in 9 days. As far as equipment, I suck at equipment. Like, I just don't. So I started, I was like, when I was young, I was like, I'm gonna make movies. What do I need? I need a camera. And then I bought a camera, and I was like, this camera sucks. I need a better camera. And I went and bought a better camera, and then a new better camera came out, and I was like, wait a minute, I just spent $3,500 on this thing and it sucks now? I'm done. I'm done with equipment. I'm done. Like, that was it. I quit immediately. So I don't do equipment. I usually, one of two things happens. I partner with somebody who has equipment and is willing to work and or let us use the equipment for little to no money. So like, there was a partner on one film that allowed us to use, I don't know, I think he spent like $70,000 in camera gear or something like that. And I think we paid $100 for it, for the entire shoot, just so there was a legal contract. With that said, he's also a partner. Like, you know, so you can partner with people to do that. You can say, hey, you've got cameras, you know what this is, you know how this works, can we do something? And just do a lot of handshaking and figure out. One thing I'll say, and this is a totally offshoot, and figure out who owns your company and how much they own, and have agreements in place for everything. Do not assume anything, because later you will get pissed at them because you've spent a month working together and you didn't realize they were going to be shitty or you were going to be shitty about something. And this has happened plenty of times. Like, there's going to be a disagreement. You guys are married. That's straight up it. Like, I'm married to my co-producers. Every year we have to have meetings. So even if I hate them, which I don't, we worked it out. We had communication. But even if I hate them, after the movie's done, there's a lot of stuff to do after the movie's done. And then for the rest of our lives, we're tied to this company as long as it's bringing money in, unless we dissolve it. And so really hash out all the details first. Be careful who you get into bed with and know that you're married to that person. But so as far as equipment though, I do partner with people. And you, again, it's been about communication and knowing who does what and where they're gonna be. We have rented. That's a budget item, and that's expensive. If you want like a really good quality, you know, that crazy package Randall has there, like, I don't know how much that is, but I always call someone who knows and I say, how much to rent this? So I have rented. If you have your own equipment, do it. You know, if all you have is a cell phone, go make a movie. Doesn't matter, like, let's get a movie made. But at the same time, yeah, partner with people with equipment. If you've got a friend who has all the equipment, bring them in the fold and make them a part of it as well. So yeah, so as far as equipment, that's it. And that's a big part of where you can save money and get to that $20,000 mark. I can't make a movie for 20 grand or 10 grand if I don't have access to the equipment. Like, I can't make the movie I want to make. How about that? I'm gonna make a cell phone movie, and it's gonna be annoying because then, you know, I'm gonna get a call or a calendar reminder and it's like, God dang it. Can we just reset, you know? So.
What is the ratio? Like, if you wanted to do a half-hour film.
There's no really good formula. So the idea is a good crew will shoot 5 pages per day. That's a really good crew is going to hit 5 pages per day. Blackwood, we shot between 7 and 9. That's why, like, especially on the interior scenes, we were running with lights because we were supposed to have a 2-camera shoot, and there was a problem. We couldn't have a 2-camera shoot. My schedule only allowed for a 2-camera shoot, and we didn't have the money to extend the schedule. So it was like, now we have a 2-camera shoot. We have to cover 7 pages a day with a 2-camera shoot is pretty good. That's okay. That's doable. 7 pages a day with a 1-camera shoot and horses and stunts and guns is a terrible idea. And so we were running all the time. So, but you figure 5 pages a day, if you're new, 2 to 3 pages a day. Like, recognize where you're at, like, get to know, because if you're new, you don't have that same precision as a pro crew where you can just be like, next. You know, there's going to be time where you're kind of figuring out what's next, what do I have to do next, and it really comes down to planning. On Blackwood, we didn't have a shot list. The DP did not like shot lists, and so I came to him a few weeks before. I was like, "Where's the shot list? What's going on?" And he was like, "I don't do shot lists." And so I was like, "Whoa, this is totally new and terrible for me." Like, how am I supposed to control what happens without a shot list? I'm used to being able to be like, next shot is this, next shot is this, and then I can communicate with my departments. I can tell makeup, like, in 3 shots, we have this shot, which is the close-up of, the arrow going through her leg, and makeup can go prep her. But without a shot list, it's like, oh, okay, where are we now? I'm gonna make a rough shot list based on what I see, and then we're gonna figure it out. So if you're at that point, if you don't have everything planned out, there's time wasted, and so you will be down in the 2 pages, 3 pages. It just depends on how much you know now and how much you plan ahead, and you're gonna learn, and you'll tighten up. Like we had on the Blackwood, we did a short for Blackwood to pitch it. The first day, I think we shot what I think we could have realistically shot it in 3.5 or 4 hours of a really fast pace, but I was lacking. It had been a long time since I've been in the AD chair, and I was just kind of like a little slow between things, and there was just wasted time. Like there's wasted time between slating, and that 5 seconds where you're like, okay, hold on, are we right? Where are we? Okay, that's time wasted, and it takes 30 seconds to slate or 40 seconds to slate. That adds up really fast. So, but yeah, so I figure 5 pages a day. That's always my rule of thumb, and then I adjust based on what's happening in the scene. Music licensing is insane, yeah. There's a really well-known movie. I watched the commentary on it, and the director had, in his mind, he had a single song he wanted the film to end with. I want this song. And it was so important to him that he ended up having to like mortgage his house and take out another loan and something else. Yeah, so he had his house paid off, and in the commentary, I think he said he paid about $600,000 to get the license for that, rights to that song, to finish the movie with just that song. It was so important to him. The entire movie cost the same as the song, to my mind. And again, I'm a producer, right? Like I look at the numbers on a spreadsheet and I'm going, no. Like no is my favorite word. And so, or how can we do this differently? I would, you hire someone to do something that kind of feels like that, but he just was so set on that song. He was willing to go out and he credit cards and mortgage, and he was like, it's so important to me. And it ended up costing, I think, the same as the entire movie. So we have a production designer that gets things printed, and so in every movie, he will have so he made a whiskey for a movie. He made a whiskey bottle. He'll get it printed, and then made what's it called? It's a laxative, and it's like he made his own laxative because we needed a shot where you realize like, oh, he's just fed her laxative, or she just fed him laxative, whatever. And so you have this shot where they look at the bottle and it's like, oh God. And he made his own. It was like, Dr. Johnny's, laxative paste or whatever. So you have to make your own fake stuff, and that's where a good designer is going to come in handy, having a friend that can design something, or, you can go on Fiverr. Like, realistically, not all of us have friends that are creative. Like, go on Fiverr, fiverr.com, Fiverr.com. It's like between $5 and $10, someone will do a really simple logo for you. So, even if it's $25 for a good quality, simple logo, you can have someone do that for relatively cheap, because someone with the skills can just pound it out. So, but logos, if you have a contemporary movie, like every hat in here except for hers is a danger, because it's, his shirt, like they have logos on them that are copyrighted, and they're going to hurt you. So same thing. It's the same thing as with the music. Yeah, Mountain Dew. Yeah, it's anything visual, anything. So we had on one movie we had 6 beer sponsors. We started by saying, "Can we use your product? We're telling this story about an alcoholic who's kind of trying to find healing," and they would be like, "Yeah, sure. You know what? Let us help you out," and they would just give us beer. Same thing happened with that same movie, Jolly Rancher. Someone on the team really wanted the actor to have Jolly Ranchers. And so we asked Jolly Rancher for permission. They gave it to us and gave us like a case of Jolly Rancher candies. So we just have Jolly Ranchers on set all the time. But we have a shot where he reaches up in the gas station, grabs it, and takes it with him. And we have to blur out everything else. So it's like a really tight focus on the Jolly Rancher, because it's the only thing we have permission to show. Everything else we can't show. Yeah, so we, like the way that the DP focused it was just like kind of hidden. So it was very myopic. So anyway, yeah, that's a good point. So you want to be careful of, logos, music. Just don't mess with it. It'll kill you. Ultra low budget, it's going to kill your production. You don't have money to throw at it. You can just cover them up too, a lot of times. Like if they're in the background, specifically, like background actors, put black tape on a black jacket and it's done. Or just change your shirt. Yeah, anyway, if you guys have other questions, like, come ask me. Like I said, I just want to try to help you guys make your movie. I want to see you succeed, and I want to see you do what you want to do. So, anyway, yeah, thanks for being here.